People keep asking, is this kid me? And I think they ask it to be funny, but no, he's just some kid in Sarajevo on the street. What's remarkable about seeing kids in Sarajevo is that, and it's covered in the book, is most children you see are the descendants, they're like the next generation, they're post-war. And in a way, every child you see on the street is a success story. It's a survivor story. You know, they don't have to do anything or say anything. Just by being there, by living, it's a sign of life continuing in a city that very easily could have been completely destroyed. My name is Robert Eisenberg. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a writer living in Pittsburgh. When I moved to Pittsburgh, I wanted to be a writer. I had always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a novelist. I figured I might want a job when I graduated school, so I took some journalism classes. And I discovered that I actually really love journalism, and I've been writing for magazines and newspapers ever since. As a journalist, I usually cover arts, culture, and travel. Usually I don't know when they're going to be a cover story, so it's always a surprise when I go to the box and I see, oh, I guess I wrote that. This is Kathleen George, who was actually my professor back in the day, and a very skilled, very prolific writer. This was on Carnegie Mellon's exhibit on Steeler culture. This is my pride and joy. I went on semester at sea, and this is the story I wrote for In Pittsburgh Weekly back in the day. Dispatches from various countries around the world. China, Japan, India. And I find that I'm just very interested in cosmopolitanism, in diversity of people. We live in a very globalized world. There's still a lot of diversity from culture to culture, from class to class, ethnicity to ethnicity, and the arts help that conversation. They help people. People understand each other. I started writing this with. It was just a passion project, but I felt very strongly about it. And I hoped that it would answer the question, what happened to these countries after they stopped fighting. I had just started becoming very serious about being a photojournalist. And in this case, it really could not have been more visually provocative than a city that had been at war and now was decidedly at peace and trying to figure out what it was trying to do with itself. And some of my favorite pictures I've ever taken were taken on that trip. Not just in Sarajevo, but all along that series of, in various Balkan countries. Considering the places I've gone and the decisions I've made, I should probably be in a lot worse shape than I am. But I rarely have to go to a doctor, which so far has been good because I usually don't have health insurance. Every time I've tried to pursue healthcare, it's either just outside of my means. I can't dependably pay for it because I'm generally working paycheck to paycheck. But also, I find it very confusing. The more paperwork, the more confusing it gets. I know a lot of people who aren't covered in any way, especially men. Physicians have told me over and over again, there's a period in most men's lives between the early 20s and like 40 when they just don't have a lot of health problems and they don't think about it, or they just kind of, you know, there's a bravado there. And it just seems like an unnecessary expenditure. And I don't feel that the system helps them recognize how dangerous that is. People like me, I'm a perfect example.
We're here in the space of the Artist Cooperative I'm part of, Just Seeds. Just Seeds is a decentralized artist cooperative of 25 artists. We make work, mostly printmakers. We make prints on themes of social and environmental justice. Hi, my name is Tremonti. I'm 33 years old. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm really into education, especially with teenagers, and printmaking, I already mentioned, and DJing, and the creation of intentional social spaces. So one of the things I do is I organize a monthly, semi-monthly queer lady dance party called Operation Sappho. I have a friend that's really into the idea of like creating a queer scouts. And running with that theme, we had a Queer Scout Sappho, and I made all these like drawings and silkscreen, these really simple merit badges, and gave them out to people at Sappho. And then I was talking to folks more about it, and someone was like, you need to get actual merit badges made of this, which I thought was a brilliant idea. So, and for me, this is really about visibility and kind of creating new signifiers. I've been into like punk and zine culture since I was a teenager, and that whole idea of like, oh, you have this patch of this like obscure band or political idea, you know, that you have on your clothing, and you see someone else with that patch and you know that maybe you have something in common, and maybe that's a way to talk to someone, to make a connection, or just maybe not to feel so isolated and alone. And then this year I made these wolf hankies. I'm really into this idea of like color being able to express different sexual practices, or just something about a person, and something be able to be read on many levels. So maybe, you know, you just see this tied around my neck. You might not read any code into it, but in the back pocket, and maybe coupled with like other signifiers, you might be able to tell that we're on the same team. So I really like that kind of unspoken code. Making art, with making zines or making music, making events, is just for me like a way to connect to people, you know, and help people connect to each other. And not feel so alone and isolated, you know, really like community building through visual culture and social culture. A lot of artists or creative people, you know, you can define artists pretty broadly, aren't working full-time jobs, you know, that come with healthcare benefits. And so a lot of people are piecing together their livings so they have time to do their creative pursuits. I've been working in this part-time nonprofit job for a decade, and I've never had health care through that job. A good friend of mine, he was a bike messenger, and he had heart problems, and he was uninsured and definitely didn't have the capacity to pay for all the medical bills. We as a community, we did some fundraisers for him, like I organized like an art sale and party at my house, you know, and made him whatever, $500 or something, like a tiny drop in the bucket. I think those kinds of things are important. But they don't address like the root problem of the lack of health insurance for everyone, or health care for everyone, really. But I believe in like multiple tactics for social change. The current system isn't working. I believe in building alternative systems, like, you know, my work of creating like temporary autonomous zones or temporary queer zones, creating these social spaces that we need to feel healthy and to connect one another. Or alternative systems of care when one of our friends is hurt, or when someone has a baby and they need meals cooked for them. You know, working out these kind of socially minded commons kind of models. So working on those and making those, but also continuing to work for institutional and systemic change, because both of those things need to happen.
Like here we have a circuit board, sparkly paper, this paintbrush, rope. I don't even know what these are for or why they're here, but I have them. I don't know why. A mobile rainbow. Fits in the palm of your hand. The most convenient of all rainbows.
My name is Sai Melting Star, and I'm a 28-year-old artist from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I do installation art, mixed media paintings, music, video, performance art, outdoor art. The womb is probably the biggest piece of physical art I've ever made before. And it was really fun to see people walk into it not really knowing what to expect, and sort of walking around inside this world that we created. I use a lot of holograms and sparkles in my work. Another theme I like to use a lot is babies. Babies represent multiple generations occurring, and through evolution, the inanimate matter becomes animate matter over time, and our consciousness increases meaning in the world, and that's part of our role as a human species, is to apply meaning to the universe around us. One thing I like about showing people my work is that they can see that most of the stuff I use is actually trash. It's mostly some boards that I found on the sidewalk, or paint I found somewhere, or images from pop culture, or just otherwise garbage that otherwise would be in a landfill, but then I turn it into this sort of spiritual art. When other people see that I work essentially with trash, it inspires them to exercise their own creativity. Art should be accessible to everybody, and everybody should, and it's healthy for people to bring whatever is inside of them out to the outside world and to remove like certain blockages that they have. I have Crohn's disease. I am currently uninsured. Right now, I keep the Crohn's disease under control with my diet, but if something ever happened where it intensified or I had a severe flare-up, I really don't know what I would do. I mean, I guess I would go to the hospital and then spend the rest of my life in debt. People are afraid of government spending, but where is our money going to right now? for these insurance companies that exist only for profit. They're not into health care. The insurance companies take healthcare as an opportunity to make money instead of an opportunity to help people who need help and to heal people. Most of my friends are uninsured. It's pretty rare that I come across somebody who actually has health insurance, especially in the art and music community. America is the only developed nation in the world that does not have universal healthcare, and it's really important that we try to catch up to the rest of the world. I don't know if you can get all the glimmer in it or not.